Uh, okay, so is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
My screen is visible, right? Anyone?
Visible, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay then. So we'll start. So today we'll learn about this security vulnerabilities and also about data breach. So you might have heard about data breach. So recently, data breach of Air India as well as uh, uh, Air India as well as Domino's data breach. You might have heard this. Just a second. Yeah, yeah. So voice is audible right now. Screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir. Even you are audible and the screen is also visible.
okay, fine. Yeah, so so we'll see how these vulnerabilities happen and why the data breach is happening and how the data is leaked. So we'll discuss all types of method one by one. So this is the report of 2015's report of Trustwave. So it was a genuine report of like information leakage and cross-site scripting, the type of data breaching, how much the damage was done. These are the type of attacks we use, like the hacker uses to leak the data. So first we'll start like common security threats are like URL spoofing, middleman attack, cross-frame scripting, SQL injection, denial of service or DOS attack we call it as, or cross-site scripting. So we'll see everything one by one. So the first one is URL spoofing. So a spoofed URL describes one website that possesses as another website. It sometimes applies as a mechanism that exploits bugs in web browser technology, allowing malicious computer attacks. Such attacks are most effective against computers that lack recent security patches. Other like during such an attack, a computer users innocently visits like a user innocently visits other website, thinking it is the true website. So say let's say there is a website called for example www.facebook.com. So in the URL only there will be slight changes, so that what user thinks is he thinks that it is a true website, but in actual that is fake website, and through that website all the data are leaked, sending information to entirely different location that would typically be monitored by information theft. So the information theft. So what happens is when you are using a fake website or a website which is not genuine, so your data is obviously being leaked, and these things can happen through email or nowadays through social media in common. So many scams are happening through social media only this time, but earlier what used to happen, these many scams and all types of attack, main source was email. So now email, the source email is little bit less, because people are not more concerned about this email. um, so there are various type of URL spoofing as well, like DNS spoofing. It is also referred as DNS cache poisoning. It is a form of security hacking in which corrupt domain name system data is introduced to the DNS server. So a fake name is given to the server. DNS spoofing is done by replacing IP address stored in the DNS server. Uh, so anyone knows full form of DNS? Anyone?
Domain namespace.
Yeah, right. So it is domain name system. So DNS where the IP address stored in DNS servers with other control, like hacker will add his IP address and then will modify the changes. So whenever users try to go to a particular website, they will be redirected to another website. So this is DNS spoofing, and other techniques like they will use fake names, like a fake link, altering the link, similar type of website. These are the things they will use. And then to prevent, uh, we can prevent it by using plugins in browsers, so that some like extensions and all, we can prevent it through that. And there are some tools as well. Also, in many of the cases, using antivirus also is useful. After that, we come into man in the middle attack. Man in the middle attack, yeah, we've already learned a man uh, sniffs through the network. He gets into the network, and through that network, he analyzes all the network packet sends, and then he analyzes the information, and then he cracks out the desired information that he needs. So, uh, after inserting themselves in the middle of the transfer, the attacker pretend to be a legitimate, like he acts as a bridge, and then he steals all the information. So there are there are types like sidejacking, evil twin sniffing. So I'll tell one by one what is sidejacking, evil twin, and sniffing. So sidejacking is stealing someone's access to website, often done using public networks. So if you're using any public network like Wi-Fi and all, so through that, it is easier for a hacker to gain access of the system. And when it comes to an evil twin attack, an evil twin attack involves an attacker setting up a fraudulent wireless access point, also known as evil twin, that mimic the exact characteristics and of the legitimate network. And this attacks has existed about long as Wi-Fi has. So after the Wi-Fi came, what hacker does, he clones the network and pretends to be the genuine network. So say there is a public Wi-Fi or a network called a BSNL. So most of the places there is a public network, BSNL public network. So what hacker does, he clones the network, switch off the real network, and he uses his network. So through that, he can easily accept all the he can hack into any system. And after that, sniffing is the common method. So in sniffing, it is also called a sniffing attack or sniffer attack. In the context of it is actually in the concept of network security. So it corresponds to theft or interception of data by capturing the network traffic using a sniffer. And sniffer is a tool which is used for sniffing. So using sniffer, what we do is whenever the data is transferred, we try to analyze the whole data, and then we gather the required information. So right, when the network is transferred, it is transferred in packets. So we analyze those packets. So to prevent that, we can use VPN and also use secure website, which ends with HTTPS. And then it comes a cross-frame scripting, also called as XFS. So XFS or cross-frame scripting is an attack that combines malicious JavaScript with iframe that loads a legitimate website in an effort to steal data from an suspecting user. This attack is usually only successful when combined with social engineering. An example would consist of attacker convincing the user to navigate to the web page the attacker controls. The attacker page then loads a malicious JavaScript and then HTML iframe pointing to the legitimate sites. Once the user enters the credential into the site within the iframe, the malicious JavaScript steals the keystrokes. So you can say it is similar to what we call it as phishing. So what we do is when uh, the hacker uses malicious JavaScript. Right? JavaScript, most of the time, what we do, so we can using JavaScript, we can create malicious code. So we can use it to exploit. So JavaScript, like nowadays, AI and machine learning, like through these things, we cannot detect whether the JavaScript file is genuine or it has malicious code and all. So what we do is in the website we like inject a JavaScript file that capture the keystrokes of the people, or as we program. Yeah, so there are type of I'll explain it. So when we talk about these access attacks, there are three type of attacks. So they also, when we talk about XFS attack, there is also another type of attacks which I will come to the later. But these are both different terms. So we'll discuss what it is later on. So basically, what XFS is. We use a JavaScript file, malicious JavaScript file, and then we use make use of that to identify the keystrokes of the website or whatever we need. So it is, you can say it as phishing in common language. So like JavaScript, this is JavaScript file in the top of the file, and what you have to do, when the coder or a cybersecurity analyst should be able to find out the malicious code in JavaScript. So whenever a packet comes, you should make sure that there is no malicious code in the packets. So this is the role of cybersecurity when he is protecting against XFS. So after that, SQL injection. So you might be knowing what is SQL injection is. So it is most common and most widely used. So first case of SQL injection was on I guess 1972, if I'm not wrong. And what happens is, see example here. So user ID and password. So what is user ID? It's Adesh, anything like that, and password is new password. So instead of that, what a user is doing, so anyways the password is stored in the database, right? So it is example. So what a user does is he will use the SQL command. Since most of the time what we do is we store all the data in SQL, so we'll use SQL command in the like user password box. So the computer misunderstood data, and then consider this as a command. So in order to prevent that, some techniques were used like hashing and all, but it was not that successful. uh, and when it comes to SQL injection also, there are different type of methods and all. There are three types of five types of different types of SQL injection. So basically, SQL injection, also known as SQLI. It is a common attack using malicious SQL. So we are using SQL code only, but we are using it to exploit the database or information. We send the malicious SQL code to backend database to manipulate the data and access the information that are not intended to display. This information may include number of items, including sensitive company data, user list, or private customer details. So when we talk about variation type, there are different type of attacks. The first one is first order SQL. In first order SQL injection arises when the application takes user input from HTTP request, and in course of processing that request, it incorporates with the input into SQL query in the unsafe way. So it happens when the website is not secure in HTTP websites and all, when we are using. So there we can use first order attack, and uh, what we do is we send HTTP request using SQL code, and after that there comes second order attack. And in second order attack, mm, uh, the second order SQL injection attack, also known as stored SQL injection. So we directly attack to the database. So the application takes user input from the HTTP request and stores it into the future set. So it stores in the database, and the user can access it through the main window. So this is usually done by placing the input into the database, but no vulnerability arises at the point where the data is stored. So where the data is stored, there is no malicious things happening. So there is no data changes, there is no data manipulation. So the thing, we are simply injecting we are changing the environment variable. I hope most of them who are using Java and all might be knowing what is environment variable is. So we are changing the environment variable in the database, and then we access these codes. And then after that it comes lateral injection. The attacker, what he does, he goes into the database, and he can also access the admin panel. So there are some prevention techniques. So we should be careful while using the SQL commands. So most of the SQL commands we can parameterize it to our own commands, so that most of the commands is not working. All command can be customized. So other than that, see, when yesterday also when I told that no company gives the role of cybersecurity analyst at the beginning or as a fresher, because the privacy and security of the whole company is in a hand. So when a security analyst is protecting the system, he should be careful with lot many of things. So he should take care there is not even a single error. So after experience, that's why you are given this role of cybersecurity after some experience. So when a database owner is handling the account, so he should be very careful about everything. I can say example of our college only. So what happened in our college was some students were given handled were given some control or to handle the database of the college. So when the students were handling the database, so there was, because of some error, students were getting many of the personal informations like username passwords of their accounts and all, and it was getting misused. So when the role of cybersecurity analyst is given, it is very responsible task. So you have to gain some experience, practical experience, and you should know about the case studies. And then denial of service attack. So here I think using this you can see what exactly denial of service attack is. So as I told, in denial of service attack, uh, just a second. In denial of service attack, what happens is more large number of traffic is sent to the particular website or whatever, say victim. A large number of traffic is sent, and it will be difficult for the server to handle, and at last it will result the whole website to crash or to slow down. And uh, and there are some different different type of attack: denial of service attack, denial of distributed denial of service attack, which happens in cloud, or through trojans we attack, and UDP, NTP, and these are the advanced level of attacks we use in DOS. So simple DOS, I can say, is earlier you might have seen. As I remember, at the early stage of WhatsApp, some message used to come. It was like only one single message. We are having some three balls kind of emoji. So whenever you used to touch that emoji, the whole WhatsApp used to crash. So what was happening there was, it was having some the the ball or those emoji was embedded with large number of code, which was impossible for WhatsApp to execute it. So WhatsApp used to crash. And also, as I told earlier also, there was Instagram story coming recently, where it was an image. When you try to open the image, your WhatsApp crashes. So it is also the same way. So what he did was using he changed some code of the program, and if the size was 20, the size he modified was lakhs, billions. So it was impossible for the system to process the image. So what was happening, the system was getting crashed. So DOS attack also, earlier we were sending malicious files to the emails. So when the email storage is exceeded, there is no RAM left, and then email is was also used to crash. So nowadays there are spam filters and all, so which prevents it to most a larger extent. So to ensure that we can use spam filter, and basically we can use filter and monitor it thoroughly. So, guys, in this PPT, I have mentioned like every pages I have mentioned the link. So, if you want, you can go to the link for your reference. And after that, it is cross-site scripting. So, uh, the cross-site scripting, when an attacker stores a malicious script. So what happens in cross-site scripting is when like developer or in whatever hacker, what he does is he goes into the source code of a program, and then he injects the particular file or a, like as I told, JavaScript. So what happens is he targets the particular user. Uh, basically, he's using a payload. Let me tell you what a payload is. So, for example, you're trying to hack Windows machine or Android device. Say you are trying to hack a Android device. So, what you have to do is you cannot directly gain access of the system, right? So, you have to send a payload. So, what a payload is, like in common words, you might be knowing, like. In rocket science, what we do is we send a payload to the using a payload we launch a satellite or something like that. So what we do is we inject a payload to a system or a machine, a vulnerable machine, or into a victim machine. So a payload can be anything, like when we are using when we are trying to hack a Android, we send a payload. Basically, usually we send a payload using APK file. But the thing is, APK file will not be visible in the home screen or anywhere. It will be visible in the settings, or in the advanced level. We what we do is we embed all the payloads into a PDF file, which is more secure, right? The hacker, sorry, victim can easily open that PDF file and use that. So in the payload we can put the code, JavaScript code, where we say that after logging in, say you are using Android device and I sent a payload. So after a payload is installed, it will activate your camera, your microphone, everything. So it will analyze your whole phone. So sometimes, say if your phone battery is draining very faster, or your phone is heating up, say there is some kind of payload. Nowadays Android patch level also they have increased, and many of the things are being controlled. So like inbuilt detection, inbuilt program of Android detects the if there are any malicious code or any payloads. And some examples of excesses are stored accesses. So I will discuss what accesses is. Stored cross-site scripting attacks occurs when attacker stores a payload on a compromised server, causing the website to deliver malicious code to the visitor. So what the hacker does, he will store the malicious code in the database. So from the database, if I say if I'm a user, if I'm accessing something, so using my request, he will send the malicious code. And after that, reflected cross-site scripting. This attack occurs when the payload is stored in the data sent from the browser to the server. So sometimes what happens is attacker using his browser, he connects to another browser and then he sends the malicious code or the payload. So I'll repeat it again. Uh, uh, it occurs when the payload is stored in the data sent from the browser to the server, and the hacker usually does this thing. So from the browser he is using, so earlier browsers like UC browser and all, it was not that safe. So through that, he was sending the malicious code to the server, and then you used to utilize that. Some example of reflected exercises like when the attacker as I told, if I'm trying to hack a system, so what I will do is using my browser, I will send the malicious code to the server, and after that in the server I can access the whole system, and I can retrieve the data. I can manipulate the admin system. I can modify the data. I can do whatever I want. After then it comes DOM based access. So cross-site scripting occurs when the server itself is one of the vulnerable to XSS. So most of what happens is most of the time in server also we add tight security or firewall and all. But sometimes what happens is server fails to servers firewalls fails to work, and then due to some error or internal error, it generates some code. This is a different thing, but JavaScript is used to add inactivity to the page arguments in the URL. Through the URL, hacker sends the malicious XSS file cross-site scripting file to the server, and whole thing, what a hacker can control using his phone or a browser. Sorry, he can control using his browser. So you might have seen when you in the browser, when you right click and then inspect, and then you can see the whole code. So there you can modify the data, and then you can send the malicious code to the server. And earlier we talked about uh, XFS also. XFS is a method exploiting cross-site scripting. So earlier what we discussed is the method of cross-site scripting. So XFS is example of CSS, and example of XFS is phishing. One example of XFS is phishing. So this is the cross-site scripting which happens. So today's assignment is you have to find difference between XFS and XSS, cross-site scripting and cross-frame scripting. So to prevent that, we can use like HTML and JavaScript. Usually, these data are embedded in JavaScript file. So to the whole conversation, what I mean to say is, when we come to this XSS attack or XFS attack, uh, JavaScript file contains the malicious activity. So in order to prevent that, we have to make sure that we are using a secure website, and then we are using some trackers, we are using VPNs, these things. So apart from all that, there are general practices, security practices which we follow to secure a website. So usually what happens is a hacker finds a weak point. So if a hacker is coming to a website, or you are trying to trying to analyze your Android phone, what he does is he tries to find out where there is some error or a weak point. So make sure that most of the error is sensitive errors. You don't show it to the user. So when your hacker sees this type of error and all, he will misuse that or exploit using that errors. Or what we can do is, being a security analyst, we can enforce a strong vertical security. So each layer adjoining to public security and database and all, everything can be like expanded, or it can be we can include a tight security, so that there is no SQL injection or say XSS, XFS. There is no frame scripting and all. So when we come to scripting attacks or XFS, XSS attacks, we should make sure that we don't use JS file. Do you have any questions? Anyone?
So,
Yes.
so what is the difference between cross-site scripting
Yes.
and JavaScript injection?
That's what there was two we discussed about XFS and uh, XFS and XSS, cross frame scripting and cross site scripting. So today's assignment is you have to find difference between both the thing. But I will say XFS is the subdomain of XSS. I will share you this PDF as well. Sorry, PPT as well. So XFS is a subpart of XSS. So both are same. XFS is subdomain of cross frame scripting. There are many type of cross frame scripting as well. In cross frame scripting, the best concept can be like data leakage through frame embedded. Like we embed the code into the frame, HTML or CSS as well. And it's a browser bug. When we come to the cross frame scripting, it is a browser bug that allows attacker to embed it into victim site in their own within the frame. Like we call it as phishing as well. So we can spy on the victim. When we come to cross-site scripting, we force JavaScript execution. So we find one or the other way to inject a JavaScript file to the victim's device, so that we can gain access to the whole data. But cross-frame scripting is easy, so there is no JavaScripting is not that much necessary, or it is not important, but it is a member of cross-frame scripting. Sorry, cross-site scripting. So the cross-site scripting and cross-frame scripting is a little bit trickier concept. So I suggest you to go through this both the thing. There is a lot more many things to read. So if possible, we'll have a separate session for these two concepts, scripting concepts. And when we come to this security and hacking things and all, so scripting plays a major role, because most of the thing you cannot do it manually. So you have to form a script and then attack into the system. So somebody asked whether we need some coding experience for this cybersecurity. So in this way, if you are fine with so as your experiences grow, normally your coding experiences will also increase. So you create the script, and also most of in many organizations, what a cybersecurity analyst do, he creates his own script, so that it prevents most of the networks or problems and all like that. So I will assign the assignment today. Just go through this. I will share the links also. It's a trickier concept. Just go through this cross-site scripting and cross-frame scripting. You know what's phishing, right? Any of you have done phishing attack? Anyone has experienced phishing attack or done the phishing attack?
Yes, sir. I have tried.
Okay, from how did you try? Did you use
So from Z Fisher.
okay, so you are using directly going to website and then you are trying this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, in the practical session when we use phishing, I will teach you how to do phishing using your phone as well. So that would be better, I guess. So either you can use your machine or a phone. So anyways, I will teach you how to conduct phishing or conduct phishing attack using your phone.
Okay, sir. So I was asking, is there any difference between JavaScript injection and cross-site scripting?
Yeah, that's what JavaScript. This is the subdomain of CSS, JavaScript injection. While injecting, we use JavaScript for the same thing. Did you get the point?
Okay,
So
it is just a subdomain. There is no difference.
see, CSS, what we do is we use JavaScript to inject the malicious file. Is that fine? In CSS,
Yes,
we
sir.
use JavaScript to inject the malicious file. In CSS, there are subdomains, XFS, and many subdomains are there. And then in subdomains, if you need, then you can use JavaScript, or you can use other method also, like zfisher, whatever you told, that is example. But you don't know how the site works, whether it is using JavaScript or simple site, and then it is using then it is using it to gain your username and password. So CSS, there are when there are many methods when we directly inject JavaScript file. So when you're injecting JavaScript file, it can also replicate your files, or damage your files, or copy all your files. But when you come to XFS, there is no need of JavaScript most of the time, or you can use your social engineering method also. So when we come to social engineering methods, see, hacking or cybersecurity is all about social engineering. So social engineering means trying convincing the user to create some fault or create some error, so that वो कोई गलती कर जाए and तुम उस गलती का फायदा उठा दो. So this is the thing. So except in CSS, JavaScript is the domain, and it is included in JavaScript, so it is subdomain. So let me give you an example. All squares are rectangles, but all rectangles may not be a square. It's the same thing.
Got it, sir.
Oh yeah. Anything else?
Sir, will you also practically teach SQL injection?
Yeah, if possible, we'll also try SQL injection. If there are any vulnerable machine and all, we'll try SQL injection as well.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
So in the practical sessions, we'll do many more things. Other than SQL injection, also we'll perform many attacks. But before that, I'll make sure that you'll not misuse that many knowledge. So most of the time, I'll try to like complicate the things, or say I'll hide some things so that things should not go in a wrong way. So this is for the educational purpose, but if people may misuse that, or say if you're going to Instagram site and then you're trying this knowledge, so when you're going to these websites, you should have best of a best knowledge. And whenever you do a small mistake, these private companies are very smart, and then they will take strict action against you as fast as they can. So I'll make sure that we do all these attacks through to a vulnerable machine. So we'll find out a vulnerable machine. We'll create a, or either we'll create a vulnerable machine, or we'll find open source for that. Anything else? Yeah, all these DOS attacks at all. There are tools. We'll do all these attacks. Whatever we discussed today, we'll conduct that experiments. How many of you are using Kali?
I'm using.
Okay, other than
I am using.
great. What about
I'm
other?
also using, sir.
Great, great. So when you're using Kali, make sure that you go through many of the like tools and all. Try to analyze them. I'm sure you might have heard about Metasploit. It is an amazing tool. But
Yes, sir.
when I'm talking about Metasploit, when we're in the phone as a terminal, we can use Termux, and most of the time, what happens is when the phone is not rooted or due to some errors, Metasploit is will not work in the Android. So these times we may need a like Kali machine or like Linux machine. So other than that, many of the attacks can also be done through Android device as well. Hmm. Anything else? Anyone? I will share today's session, today's PPT to the group. And if you're having any doubt, you can ping me. And soon after this, like theory session are completed, uh, we'll go through the practical session. So practical session will be important, and all your doubts will be cleared there. Okay, any doubts? Okay, then. So let's end today's session then here only. So I'll assign you the assignments.